first year. And then last year, I think I had about 8 or 9. And now this year, so far, I think I've had like 2 or 3. So it's slowed right down. And then last year, I'm happier with the stories that I'm writing. And now this year, so far, I think I've had like 2 or 3. I think it's, I'm just taking my time sending them to places. And if that means waiting a little longer for a response, then so be it,
Yeah, definitely. And you've got to write for you as well. And if you're happy with what you're doing, then that's pretty much the main thing.
Well, yeah, exactly, So what sort of areas do you write in? Do you cover fantasy and do you do speculative fiction or horror? What's your niche?
My niche at the moment is horror, and particularly horror that's of a paranormal nature. I like monsters. I like writing about monsters and things that go bump in the night. That's kind of my thing. I'm not such a big fan of kind of body horror or I have a real thing these days, and I think it's because I've just seen so many slasher movies about horror fiction or horror films where women just get mutilated or slaughtered in large numbers. I'm kind of getting bored of that because it's a bit of a trope, and tropes are fine, but there's more than that. There's more stuff to explore in the world of horror than just some teenager gets murdered by some weirdo. So it's I'm not a big fan of splatter gore either, although I do appreciate that it's a very particular kind of art. I like this kind of slow creeping horror. I like to build characters. I like things that are unexpected. That's kind of my niche at the moment, and that's why No Sleep is so good, because it fits me right down to the ground. Other things I like to toy with are sci-fi. I've got a sci-fi book on the go at the moment. And I would like to one day return to my abiding love of fantasy, which was where I kind of started off as a kid. I read a lot of fantasy novels as a kid. But there's just not enough hours in the day.
No.
Yeah. So
have you done
now.
Yeah. Have you done any sort of crossover work, like the sci-fi horror, or tried to throw something quite random out there, like a fantasy horror or anything like that?
I don't know I'd be able to do it justice. And actually, to be fair, like most of the horror stories where you have some kind of weird creature or monster is kind of crossing over into sci-fi, at least anyway. I mean, if you look at like movies like The Thing or Alien is essentially a horror film. It's not a sci-fi movie. It's like a classic horror film to the letter. So I think a lot of my stories are probably, and a lot more that I've got in my mind that I'm writing are going to go more down the sci-fi route as well. But with fantasy, it's kind of difficult to do that, because it's a very specific genre, and I just don't see how I'd make that work. If I was going to do it, I would do fantasy properly, and sit down and write myself a big quest book, which I've always wanted to do. We all love a good quest.
Oh gosh, I used to play a little bit of the old Warhammer and stuff when I was about 13 or something. So
you still do? Don't pretend. You still do.
No, I'm much too cool. I'm much too cool for that, Gemma. I'm much too cool.
Of course, that's yeah.
But I don't think I could ever write fantasy. I don't know. I just feel like what I'd write would be completely sort of unoriginal and rubbish, and people would laugh at me for it because I don't know the genre that well, and it's not something that I read a hell of a lot of.
I think every idea has been done before. I think I spent a lot of time really thinking and trying hard to come up with new ideas and original stuff, and actually I just thought it's all been done before, but actually it doesn't matter. Just because it's been done before doesn't mean you can't redo it in your own unique kind of way. It's probably worth trying at some point, I would say, if it's niggling at you.
I tend to have, you tend to know when it's the right story to write, sometimes I have an idea, it'll just sort of pass me by, and I'm sure you're the same. You'll be thinking of something like, all right, okay, Will Marchese does a podcast that works, that's the idea.
I was thinking of writing it like, Will Marchese has a podcast where everything goes wrong, and then
But other things just sort of grab you, you know, and you just feel compelled to write them. And I find that there's a few little things that sort of stick with me that are in my stories in one form or another that have come from my past, my upbringing, or there's a little bit of you in every story, I think, and your interests are there and your experiences are there. You can sort of spot it when you sort of look back at it. So what sort of things influence you? When you're writing your horror stories, are you influenced by Bristol? Are you influenced by your kids or your family or your upbringing? Is there anything you sort of throw into your stories from you?
I throw in a lot of stuff into each one of my stories because it just doesn't ring true if it's not personal for me. So I take out a lot of my aggression on people I know with my stories. I kill quite a lot of people I don't like anymore in a increasingly violent ways, which is great fun. I pick up on a lot of things from childhood, a lot of experiences I've had that are probably not the nicest experiences in the world. A lot of the stuff that I've read as a kid and onwards, when I kind of discovered Stephen King when I was in my mid-20s and just read the entire back catalogue in about 2 years. And that's a huge influence on the things that I like to write about. Actually, Bristol is a really evocative place, and I have written quite a few stories about Bristol. It's, for anybody that doesn't know, over in the US, it's a kind of town off to the southwest of the UK, where a very famous engineer once lived. So it's got a really beautiful big suspension bridge called the Clifton Suspension Bridge. And it's a very green and arty city and very liberal. And there's a whole lot of stuff going on. Media, there's a huge media centre. We have a lot of film festivals. We have a lot of cool old spooky architecture. We have tunnels under the city that they do movie screenings in. It's a good place to get the imagination going. And there's one of the first ever short stories I wrote was the real life story of a cinema manager in the 1930s who managed the local Odeon cinema and was shot to death in his office in the middle of the day. And they never found whoever did it. Allegedly, some kind of hard-bitten crook admitted that he'd killed him when he was in his 70s and on his deathbed. So there's lots of stories like that, lots of urban legends as well. And I kind of, when you write, you take everything in your life around you and you sort of, you sort of shove it into the story. And then you want to make, I like to make things pop. I like to bring things to life. And you can only do that if you write from reality as well.
Yeah. I think that's sometimes what makes a great story from a good one, the ability to describe something that's very difficult to describe and do it in an effective way that, the majority or most of the readers can sort of process in their mind.
I mean, there's a few topics that I haven't touched yet. We were chatting about this the other day on Twitter, actually. There's a few topics that I probably should try and write around at some point. I'm just not brave enough to do it because I know it will be quite a painful process. But the doing of it can be quite cathartic, and I just want to make sure I do it in a way which isn't doing it for entertainment purposes and making light of the situation, if that makes sense. Like, it's got to be heartfelt, otherwise it's just a bit cheap.
So I'm assuming it's something quite personal then, that you're just sort of trying to...
a few personal demons that I think I should probably try and get out in my writing at some point.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, like, as you say, that's a very difficult thing to do, because you want to sort of have something there that is a good piece of writing, or an entertaining piece of fiction, but at the same time, you don't want to make something that's very personal to you look crap on the paper, and you want it to do it justice. Sorry.
Exactly.
So. No, I completely understand. I mean, at the moment, with my writing, I've got this sort of little mini obsession with the past. And as someone who's the same age as me, you no doubt sort of grew up in the 80s and 90s, and those are your sort of that's your sort of time. And I'm kind of obsessed with the idea of going back to that time with the with the knowledge that we have now, and just seeing things that we remember, but like in HD as opposed to like just like a faded memory in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Have you as someone who's English, you probably have heard the thing like wagon, the chocolate bar wagon wheels.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know if you have started here in Bristol, but it's like this for anyone who's in America who doesn't know what they are. They're like big round chocolates filled with marshmallow, and some of them have jam in as well.
Don't forget the wafer. There's wafer in the middle.
There's wafer. Sorry, Gemma. I'm glad you're on. Put it out. I'm glad you're here. But there's this like, I don't know if it's like an urban legend or like a little myth or something, but they reckon that the ones these days are a lot smaller than the ones back then.
I think they are.
Yeah, I think they are too. But is it just because our hands are bigger?
I think it's Brexit. I think there's something.
I think it is. The polo mint size now. But they used to be really big chocolate bars, and I have this sort of vague memory of having a picnic and with all these little treats laid out in front of us, and just sort of thinking how interesting it'd be to go back, like with the knowledge that I have now, and sort of view it again, and sort of say, oh yeah, it is actually smaller, it is actually bigger, and how weird it would be to see like all the old brands and all the old ways of things, like walking into a pub and it being filled with smoke again, and
I think that's why it's really difficult to write convincingly from. And this is something else I haven't tried yet, but to write from a kid's point of view in a story. So that it happens a lot in horror, and in particular, a lot of Reddit stories where kids experience something really creepy when they're 6 or 7 years old. And I think because I've got a kid now, I can immediately tell when someone's writing a story and they've got no idea how a real kid thinks. That's one of my main bugs. I have like several things that really piss me off, and one of them is unrealistic children in fiction. Because if you're going to use a kid, then do your research, because kids react to things in ways you wouldn't expect. So, but there's that whole remembering what your childhood is like and trying to turn that into a story is really, really hard, I think, because you 30 odd years between now and then, you forget, and rightly so. Otherwise, life would be a bit weird. So
you do. It's like say you got these sort of very vague memories of things and the way things used to be. And I moved away from where I grew up, but I've been back since, and it's interesting to walk down the same street and see how things have changed, And I love those little books you can get with the, the now and then in it.
Yeah.
They're also quite interesting as well. But so, as a paranormal writer, sorry, going off on a bit of a tangent, do you actually believe in ghosts?
No.
This is really interesting because
people ask me this question a lot, and I really struggle with it because it makes me sound like a massive fraud. But I'm very a-religious. I'm not, if that's a word. I don't have a particular faith. I'm quite encouraging of anybody that has a faith or a belief and wants to enjoy themselves. That's all good. I don't discriminate, but I personally don't believe in God or heaven or hell. And I think by the same rote, it would be a bit weird to believe in ghosts and spirits, and an afterlife. And I quite like the idea that we're just all this big biological organism, that when you die you rot and that's it, and I'm kind of okay with that. It's sad, especially if you've ever lost anybody, and I've lost people. You afterwards in your grieving process, you kind of hope that there's something beyond. But then there's also something quite comforting in. I don't believe in ghosts. Sorry.
The reason I asked was an editor that we know we're writing for an invite-only anthology at the moment, and it's a paranormal themed one. And I was talking to this editor, and he was like, "Yep, don't believe in ghosts." I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, you can write. It's like you can write a story from a male point of view, and I'm not a male. This is true.
Yeah, but I just thought it was really interesting. But it's funny, but it still finds it scary though. It still gets a chill from a ghost story, but it doesn't necessarily believe it.
Yeah, but that's where it's fun. Like, I like being scared. I've watched horror films since I can remember. I don't know how old I was, and the main reason I did it is because I liked being scared. And actually, I think going back to what we were saying before about writing about things that are personal, I don't write about stuff that really scares me because that revolves around things happening to my kid or other things that are actually real threats in life. I don't want to write about that. It's miserable. So, you know, give me a good old ghost story any day and I'm happy. I'm monsters and ghosts and wolves. Oh my, you know, that kind of stuff. But it's just more enjoyable.
Yeah. I think I'm kind of on the fence, you know, about things like that, about the paranormal
right now?
stuff.
Isn't that really uncomfortable?
Literally, but it is really uncomfortable.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd get up and have a walk if I were you.
I fell onto it from a great height as well, so my voice was a little bit high pitched. But yeah, I'm not sure where I want to go with the whole sort of death and afterlife thing. But like you say, you don't have to, I suppose, believe in that to sort of be scared of it. It's like when you were watching like Nightmare on Elm Street as a kid, and your dad used to get, But I remember being terrified of it when I was like 7 or 8 years old. My dad had a VHS on his TV.
Probably because you were too young to watch that film.
I know.
I'm just about to say.
Just about, yeah. Like, not intentionally, it didn't make me watch it, but I'd sort of sneak downstairs and have a peek around the door and stuff.
I did that interview with Vampire. I remember that very clearly. Yeah, that's another good film.
But I knew it was rubbish, and I knew it was a man in a rubber suit, and I knew he, you know, but it doesn't make it any less scary, does it?
No, of course not.
It's sort of, you just sort of get absorbed into it, and it's good. So,
what about the newer things like Saw and all those movies that like take sort of real life things that could happen?
I see. Now, Saw is one of the rare. I'll make an allowance for the whole Saw franchise because the first movie was so well written and so clever.
Yeah.
I just thought it was fantastic. And then once you're in a franchise, you kind of watch it to the end. I thought it was very clever, actually, a really good premise. And I think it's all gone a bit silly, but these films do, like when you get to film number 4, it all starts to go down the toilet. But Saw was awesome. The kind of films I guess I don't like, if we're talking about that, are things like Wolf Creek, where it's just incredibly gratuitous torture and rape, and there's you get to the end of that film and you just sort of sit there and go, why the fuck did I watch that? You know, there's no redemption in it at all. It's just it's just a harrowing watch for no reason. There's that, you know, nobody survives, and yeah. So I much prefer a kind of a proper story arc, I think, where there is a happy ending on occasion. That can happen with some horror movies, you know, and that's okay, and it's right in the context of that character. Yeah, but Saw was a good film, and I like Hostel, on the other hand, nah, not in the slightest bit interested. No, didn't like it. I did try. I gave it a really good go, but I just not interested.
No, I must admit, we bought into the Saw franchise. We went to see the first film. And I just thought it was absolutely brilliant. And I thought, it's a little bit like Seven in a way. It sort of reminded me a little bit like
awesome
film. But they, like you say, just got a little bit silly. We didn't miss a single one though, all the way through. You know, went to every Halloween, me and Lisa would go to the cinema, and we'd get a babysitter. when Holly came along, we got a babysitter and went and watched it. And it's only like lately that the new one came out where I didn't go and watch it at the cinema, and I was glad I didn't, really, because it wasn't brilliant. I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't. No, not yet. No.
No, don't go well out of your way.
So I don't go to the cinema anymore. So.
No, that's it. Watch a lot of films streaming these days. You know your Netflix and your things like that. But I watched. Have you seen The Strangers?
No.
It was a horror film, an independent one. It was out about 10 years ago. If you've not seen it, watch it.
Okay.
You might like it, you might not, because it is quite harrowing. It's not quite Wolf Creek, but it's just a couple in a house, and this family just turn up. They're all wearing masks,
I have seen that. I have. That's got Liv Tyler, hasn't it?
Yes.
Is that Liv Tyler? Yes. No, that is a good film. Yeah.
Yes.
Again, it was kind of a bit miserable, but yeah.
I just thought it was really clever, and at the end it was like, why are you doing this to us? And the woman just said, well, just because you were home. Yeah. And I just thought it was really cool the way it was done. And there's a sequel to it that we watched last night, which is one of the reasons why I sort of mentioned it. I think it's called Pray at Night or something. The Strangers subtitle Pray at Night.
Yeah.
We watched it last night, and it's a little bit shit. But it has some really good little set pieces in it that are fantastic. And the 80s music is brilliant. It's got Total Eclipse of the Heart by Bonnie Tyler.
Oh my God.
It's like a proper old school sort of 80s sort of soundtrack to it. But there are a few, like I said, set pieces in it that are just brilliant and like really frightening and really clever. So watch it, but don't expect anything from it. But
okay.
I think the best thing I've seen this year so far in terms of horror is probably A Quiet Place. I really enjoyed that.
See, I haven't seen any of the new things that people keep talking about at the moment. I haven't even seen Get Out yet, which I need to see.
Oh, Get Out's good.
Yeah. When you have a kid, you kind of end up catching up a lot. Which is a shame, but Yeah,
there's one coming out at the cinema now, I think, called Hereditary.
I've seen adverts for that, and that looks very good. Yeah.
Is it just me, or does the little girl in it looks really weird and really creepy?
I think there's a reason for it, though. I'm guessing there's some sort of play on Hereditary and maybe some kind of condition, because there's a lot of talking about looking after her and maybe some medical or physical condition.
Yeah, I think so. I remember looking at it and thinking, yeah, she's a strange-looking girl, and then going on Internet Movie Database to see the actress that played this girl. And in real life, she don't look much like the character on screen. So I think you're right. There is some sort of something's been passed down to her, no doubt, and that's the reason behind it. But yeah, what are you watching at the moment, Will?
I want to watch a few things. I'm actually like way behind. I want to catch up on the It's what the hell's the name of that one? It's had like hotel. It has American Horror Story.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Have you seen any of that?
I saw the hotel one. I saw the one with Lady Gaga in. Well, that was the one hotel. I think the other one, the Roanoke Nightmare.
Yeah.
That one also had her, but she played a smaller role in it. She was like the kind of witch that was in the woods or something. But she wasn't one of the main protagonists, antagonists. Sorry. And then I saw the haunted house one with the pregnant. Yeah. That one was really good as well.
I think that was the first series actually. That was Yeah, that was awesome, and that whole concept worked really well of taking all those characters and then in the next series doing a completely different storyline with all the same actors, and I really liked that. But it's definitely fallen off for me in the last couple of series. I haven't kept up with it at all. But the first one, House, that was awesome. That was very very very. I really enjoyed that. It was proper entertainment.
Yeah, and when you see it, it's like you definitely know like this, like it just screams horror. Like it's just.
And it's got the best cry wank scene I've ever seen in a TV show. And there's some good ones, but that's got the best one. Sorry, I've just killed that.
It's fine. I'm just going to go walk over here. I might be like 10, 20 minutes.
No, at this point...
The Handmaid's Tale's been really good.
Oh, Handmaid's Tales?
Yeah, we've been watching that. We finished like the first series in a week of that last week. And it is brilliant. I mean, I'd read the book, but...
See, I'm a Margaret Atwood acolyte. Like, I just cannot get enough of how she writes and what she's written. And I think Blind Assassin was always the best one of her novels for me. It's the first one I ever read, and it just blew me away. And then there's another novel she's written called Surfacing, which is about a lady who she moves out to the cabin in the woods that her father owned to try and track down her father who goes missing, and she kind of slowly goes a bit bonkers. Just the way this woman writes is it doesn't. I haven't seen the TV show, and I'm kind of scared because I don't want it to take away from what I've read. I I know it's very good, and I know a lot of people have been talking about it. I'm a bit protective over things when when you discover something for the first time in one format or the other, and you like, for you, that's always the best version of that thing there will ever be. So I don't know if I can bring myself to actually watch it, but at some point,
it's good. The first series is based on the book, and then the second series goes off into it's just set in the same universe, and it has the same main character in it. She's just beyond the end of the book sort of thing, and it sort of moves out into the colonies and stuff. It's really interesting. One thing that annoys me a little bit about it is loads of these extended close-ups of her face, because she's a cracking actress. I couldn't tell you what her name was at the moment, but she does portray an emotion quite well. But once you notice it, it gets on your nerves a little bit, and it's like, oh yeah, me and my other half have a bit of a joke, like, oh, here we go, another extended close-up of the face.
She does that a lot in Top of the Lake as well. They do that quite a lot. I thought the TV series she was in with, I think Holly Hunter was in the second one. Yeah. And there was a lot of that, and I like brooding, and I like pacey, and but there's a limit. And broody is good, but in small doses. Like.
So, who are your biggest influences then? You mentioned Margaret Atwood. Who else is, as you were sort of growing up, did you enjoy reading?
Literary influences. You might be here sometime, because there's a lot. I studied English Lit at university. There's a lot of conflicting influences on my life, but I'm a big classics fan. So I've read all the classic horror stories, Mary Shelley, and all of the classics, like you say. So Bram Stoker's Dracula and Frankenstein and Frankenstein. So very influenced by turn of the century writers, British writers, Shelley, all of that gang, all that opium smoking, drug addicted, weird bunch of people that went off to the woods and wrote scary stories to scare the shit out of each other. I'm a big fan of Angela Carter. Is probably one of my favorite authors. She was around from the 60s to the 80s. She studied in Bristol at one point as well, actually, and she wrote mostly magic realism. But it was so she rewrote fairy tales into horror stories, grown-up horror stories. She wrote The Magic Toy Shop, which is about an old man who makes very lifelike puppets, and it's very creepy. Everything had magic in it, and I loved it because it was gory and dark and sexy and just a very strong female voice. So I was very much influenced by that. A lot of fantasy writers, Robert Jordan in particular, Tolkien, and then the greats, the people like King. This is a. If you get me started on this topic, I'm going to bore the pants off you, because I could just talk about this until the cows come home. One of the things I really, really stuck with me when I was at uni, I did English literature. And I did drama as well, and one of the modules I studied was Icelandic literature. So it was Icelandic sagas, so things like Beowulf, and it really stuck with me because it would, like, a traditional Icelandic saga story was never written down. It was all passed from person to person by talking through speech. And the reason they told these stories was as a kind of reminder of what their heritage was. So instead of a book saying, here's your family tree, they had big, grand legends and stories. And Beowulf in particular starts off with like 12 pages of, and so begat so-and-so, who then had so-and-so as a son. There's 12 pages of this, and then all of a sudden it will launch into, and then he raped and ate her head. And it's just like, whoa! It's incredible, like the stories and the legends, and I try and just bear all of this stuff in mind whenever I'm writing. All the things I've read over the years, like I love the idea of lore and folklore and heritage and legend and all of that stuff. So there's an awful lot of influences, but it's like that thing, if somebody ever asks you what your favorite book is, you can never say, or your favorite song or your favorite movie. There's just so much. Yeah, I'm going to shut up now because I'm waffling.
Will likes King, don't you, Will?
Likes King?
Yes, as in Stephen.
No, I mean, I actually, I mean, I love Stephen King's stories and everything. Dean Koontz, a lot of the other ones, Thomas Harris, Dan Brown. But, sometimes when you listen on social media a little too much, it's just some crazy things happen. You hear everybody's opinions, and it's fine and everything, but you want to hear something about what they're doing. You want to hear their updates on what's coming out next and stuff like that. But
you mean what? Following authors on Twitter and things like that?
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like I just thought that Twitter was something that you went to see like what people are doing, but then
it's really not.
Yeah, it's gotten so personal. It's everybody's fighting each other and people getting fired and it's just some crazy stuff happening on there. And like Gary said in some of his posts, like he goes and says that there's a lot of writers that you're pretty much talking to fellow writers on there, unless you do find the fans and everything. But then where are the fans? It's a whole trick to the. I think they call it was that SEO, like search engine optimization, and trying to go to which social media platform actually has the readers and everything. I'm reading that Reddit. I don't know if either of you have used Reddit yet or know anything about Reddit.
I know enough about it to know, and I've asked this question quite a lot of times because again, the whole No Sleep podcast came from the No Sleep subreddit.
Yeah.
And you can post a story and get thousands of views within moments, which is fine, but it's not for me. It's I don't personally want to use a social media platform for that. If I'm going to write, I'll submit it to somebody who publishes, and then I retain all the copyright, and that makes me happy. Reddit is fraught with potential data issues, and also I think there's a lot of people who aren't really interested in reading your stuff, but mostly interested in criticizing your stuff. And as much as you need criticism to be a good writer, and I'm quite thick-skinned, it's just a bit depressing, I think, to just go, some teenager from Austin, Texas goes, he's a bit shit, and you're like, well, thanks, I spent ages writing that story. That's not really who I'm writing for. So it's
I've seen a lot of and there's even this guy on YouTube that talks about like a lot of Reddit things that happen on. I mean, I would almost say it's almost like I don't know if you guys have this out there, but what's that one, Gary, where you can like sell a couch and somebody they'll just come up and pick it up.
Gumtree.
Oh, so
Gumtree.
Oh, okay, so it's different. Yes, you guys call it Gumtree. Here it's called I totally forgot the name of it, but it's like one of those creepy websites, like those creepy platforms where everything is out in the open, and you get all these hackers and well, in the case of this thing, like sometimes you'll be lucky. You put something out, and people will come. They won't come. If you're lucky, they're not killers that are coming to your door. But it's just insane. Like, so I've heard so many horror stories about Reddit, but then it's like, where are all the real viewers, the real people who want to read? Like, I know Instagram is a big thing too. That a lot
of people fall into the trap of using so my past job was as you said, search engine optimization. I used to do that for a living. And social media management and all that stuff. And a lot of people make the mistake, and I was having a chat to a writer friend of mine in the pub on Friday about this, and he said, well, Instagram's out there, I need it, don't I? That's I need it. Everyone says I need it. I haven't got a fucking clue what to post. I need it. And so, social media is meant to be social media. For me personally, I use it to connect with people, to find other writers, to get involved in author groups and all the rest of it. But I think the real readers are probably, some of them are on social, but I think the real readers are elsewhere. I think they're in bookshops, or they're on Amazon, or they're downloading their books from particular sites like Goodreads or things that are oriented at readers rather than people who dick around on social. So it's a trap a lot of people fall into, kind of trying to reach an audience just through social media. And I personally think there's a lot of different other avenues you can explore, and more traditional ones as well, like a good old PR article, like having an interview with two lovely guys who do horror.
Yeah, but if you were going to do that, Gemma, you'd have to go on a professional podcast.
Yeah, like a professional one. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't found that yet. I'm just
You might eventually,
Yeah, one day. One day
we could hope. So, anyway, I'm going to have to shoot off in a moment, guys. My baby's crying.
Okay.
So
am I allowed to plug my podcast while I'm on here?
Oh yeah, definitely plug.
Yes, you are.
Plug everything. Yeah.
That was the next.
Because there are 5 other women listening to this, and they will kill me if I don't mention it.
Go ahead. What, plug away.
Plug away. Okay. So in a nutshell, I'm writing a podcast with another quite successful no sleep author called S.H. Cooper, and co-creating it with another 4 girls who we all know each other through various podcasts in the world of no sleep. It's an audio drama and it's horror comedy, and it's about six women who accidentally summon a demon and how they cope with said demon and various shenanigans as it goes forward. So we've been really lucky. We've had a lot of interest from quite notable voice actors, and we have a few people who are fairly well known in the podcast and audio industry who are supporting us and mentoring us, and it's shaping up to be a very fun project. So we're currently casting. Well, we finished casting and we're going through the auditions. We are finishing off our plots and our storylines, and so look out for that one.
And what's that one called? Sorry.
It's called Calling Darkness.
Cool.
You can find us on Twitter and on Facebook. And when I've got my finger out of my bum, I'll finish the website as well at some point.
And when we're going to roughly see that or hear that? When's it going to be out?
I would hope this year. That's the closest target as I've got at the moment. So yeah, we're aiming for sooner rather than later, but it depends on lots of different bits and pieces. So
yeah. And is there anything personal that you'd like to plug? Any stories that you've got coming out, or
I've got a story coming out fairly. Oh, I can't tell you that actually. No, let's forget that. I've got an anthology of horror stories coming out at the end of the year, which we spoke about before. I've got a story coming out on the Grey Rooms, which we spoke about. I'm also working with a very nice chap called Mark Nixon. I think you know.
Yes, Shadows at the Door.
Shadows at the Door. So I'm working on a story for him at the moment, and I've got some sticky fingers and some sticky pies. So lots to look forward to. But I guess just keep harassing me on social, and you'll hear it when it comes out.
Yeah, he does such a good job. I have a lot of banter, I suppose you could call it, with Mark. We sort of have a bit of a joke on Twitter, and but in all seriousness, the Shadows at the Door anthology that he brought out was really good.
It's stunning as well. I mean, visually, it's just stunning to look at. It's a pretty thing to own.
Did you listen to the Audible as well? Have you heard the Audible?
Not yet.
It's so
long
good.
List of things to catch up on. So yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, we have a bit of a laugh and a joke, and I think I offend him semi-often with my sense of humour. Yeah,
it's not British unless you offend each other at least every week.
Yeah, that's it. But no, I greatly admire Shadows at the Door, and I think the audiobook is fantastic, and I believe he's doing a podcast too.
That would be what I'm potentially working with him on.
Okay. Yep.
Yep.
So excellent, and no doubt it's going to be fantastic, because the type of story he does is something I find something I'd like to be good at doing, but I need to sort of work at it a little bit more. But I imagine with you being sort of a paranormal type writer, you'd be right up his alley, because he loves all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking for. I mean, I'm having fun with it. It's I can't forget the last podcast, which is Whispers in the Night, which is like it's like a paranormal investigation show, but they have a section at the end with a short story, which is where I come in. And the next episode is due out fairly soon, although I have to apologise to Sang because I haven't got my story in on time, which is really bad.
Oh dear.
But that's also really cool, and every week he talks to somebody different. Every episode he talks to somebody different from the horror industry or the paranormal industry, and they try and really get under the skin of local legends and things like the Wendigo was the last episode, so we had a whole, spoke to various different people about that legend and really unpicks it before it goes into the fictional part at the end. So I'm shouting him out as well, because Seng's been really cool and taking me on board and trusting me to write whatever stories I like, really, for the show. So yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. And can I just ask, if I'm looking for your stories on the No Sleep podcast, which ones are they? How do I find them?
You would need to start on series 10. I think there's a search function in the website where you can search by author, so you can search for me, or on Google. I'll pop up on Google as well. And I'm going to update my website to have a full link of all the stories soon, but that's probably not going to happen straight away. So yeah, use the website. It's all on there, and just search like mad.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much for coming on, Gemma. I'm really, really sorry about the technical difficulties. Honestly, listen to all. Oh goodness! I was going to say, listen to all our previous. We hardly ever have this problem.
Yeah. I think it was a dead man's curse or something.
Dead man curse. Yeah.
It's nice to be singled out.
Hey, can I ask you one last question? When a British person offends someone, is it not as bad because of the accident? Accent.
I think it takes quite a lot to offend most British people, because we're just all so vile to each other on a daily basis. Like it's a mark of affection to just be awful to each other.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So we have the opposite, where we sometimes we look at American culture, which is very positive and self-affirmatory, and there's lots of compliments and the kind of classic "have a nice day." And British people are like, if somebody said that to me, I'd say fuck off. It doesn't work like that in England. If someone says hello to you, you're like, what are you selling?
Yeah.
No, it's not that bad, and it's particularly not that bad in Bristol. But generally, I think our offending threshold is quite high. Mine is. It takes an awful lot to offend me. Yeah. So we're fairly tolerant people, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
I never get it. Well, yeah, you can give it away. He frequently does. But I don't get the whole thing where you've got like these horror writers and they're like writing about people being beheaded and having maces shoved up their assholes and all this and the other. And then they get offended by like me saying bum. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, that's a rude word.
I know, it's unbelievable. But it's a little bit worse than that. Mark will probably tell you.
I'm not getting involved. I'm going to sit over here in my comfy, safe corner where nobody can get to me.
Yeah, sounds good, Gemma. Sounds good. But no, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you.
It's been really interesting, and like I said, sorry about the technical difficulties.
It's fine. My lawyer's going to write to you, but
No, and have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you.
Well, and dark now. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dark.
Cool.
Bye, man.
Bye.
Bye.
See you later. Bye. Bye.
All right.
See you later.
All right. So sorry everybody for all the technical difficulties. Just want to say a few things. If you would like to come on or talk about horror, I promise there will be no more technical difficulties. I'm going to go over a whole bunch of things. Or if you have something to sell or a book coming out, please contact either me or Gary. You could come on to one of the shows after this one. If you obviously not before this one. If you like this show, please give it a thumbs up and comment on what you like to hear. If you don't like it, hey, give it a thumbs down. I mean, this one probably deserves it. Not because of Gemma, obviously, because of the technical difficulties. But yeah, so just subscribe to come. I'm going to try to work out something where maybe Gemma comes on again, so we can get we'll have a hanging episode. A hanging out episode rather, and try to fix all the problems that we had here. I don't know what happened. I think literally before I started this podcast, I got like an update, and Microsoft just like screwed me royally. It took like at least a half an hour. I'm over here. I came here earlier to get all the things up and running, and a half an hour it took to get that update happening, and all my video and audio settings are just screwed up. OBS was totally shut off. I don't know what happened, but I mean, we got it working towards 25% into it, so that should be good. We will talk to you soon. And here goes a little outro.
It sounds like a sausage. 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 Why is there an echo? It sounds like a sausage. 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 It sounds like a sausage.